I'm pulling it up and I feel like I get electrocuted in my left arm. Welcome to the Shaw Strength Podcast. I am your host, Brian Shaw, and today I've got a shorter episode for you, but I hope that it's impactful. I hope that it's powerful. I'm going to share a message with you about a time where I had to meet some adversity head on in my life. And we're talking about when I tore my bicep back in 2012. The beginning of this story actually starts at the end of 2011 when we got the events for the Arnold Classic in 2012. And the big change in the events for the Arnold Classic in 2012 was that the manhood stone, the big heavy Atlas stone that I loved, was removed from the event list and it was replaced by an axle clean only. So if you've ever seen the big STRONGMAN axles, the big thick bar, typically those are used for a clean and press. So you get it to your shoulders, press it overhead. This particular event, however, was a clean only. So you only had to do the first part and get the axle up to your shoulders for it to count as a rep. I was very frustrated by that event change, and I'm not going to lie about it. That was the first part of the adversity with this contest that I had to face because I was so good at the stone event, and not that I was necessarily bad at the axle clean, but it was something that I was going to have to work incredibly hard on. And I had two choices at that point in time, either to attack that event head on and get better at it, or say, well, I might not be as good at that axle clean, so I'm just going to kind of focus on the other events and take the points that I can get there. I took it as kind of a personal attack on me. And this is just something that I had to do in my head to get ready for the Arnold Classic. So I built up this story in my head that they were, trying to go after me personally by taking the stone out, putting the axle in. And I attacked that axle clean and press. Well, it wasn't a clean and press. It was a clean only event in training, literally with a type of rage that I had not really got into in training before. So week in and week out, I kind of made it personal with that axle. And I trained that event. And for anybody that's done an axle clean and press, the continental part, you kind of set it on your upper abdomen, and it's pretty painful. The more that you train it, the more that you get beat up. And so going through my training cycle, I was bruised. I remember at one point I thought I had cracked my sternum. It was popping, which it was not doing that before training all of this. And I attacked that event very, very hard. And I got to a point where I was comfortable with that event and I felt adequately prepared going into the Arnold Classic. And I really, really wanted to win that axle clean and press just to prove a point about the stone not being in and that event being in. The axle that we had to do that year for that clean only event was 460 pounds. So definitely not a lightweight, but I had got to the point in training where I felt as though I could do 5 reps going into the Arnold Classic. And I felt like that would be a really good score, if not win that event. And so that was my preparation leading up. I'm not going to say that I trained smart. Like I said, I trained with anger, I trained with rage, and I met that adversity of that event change head on. I probably could have done it smarter in hindsight, but again, that is just the way that I attacked it, and I was not going to lay down and die. I was not going to give up. I was going to walk in there adequately prepared for that event, and that is exactly what I did. So fast forward now to the actual contest. The Arnold Classic comes up. This axle clean only event is the first event in the competition. So I walk out. I'm excited to get the contest started, to put up at a minimum 4, hopefully 5 reps, really get a strong start. And the very first rep of the contest. So I picked that axle up the first time, I'm pulling it up, and I feel like I get electrocuted in my left arm. So I felt like I got shocked is the best way that I can describe it. 3 different times in my left bicep area. So I didn't know what had happened at that point, but I kept pulling and I was able to finish that first rep. I put the axle down and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know exactly what was wrong. So in, competitive fire, because I was only 1 rep in and I knew I needed more reps, I decided to flip my grip over. So typically, the axle clean and press from a continental standpoint is done with a mixed grip, which means that one hand is over and one hand is under. So my left hand, where I had the bicep problem, was my underhand. So I decided, and this was not very smart either, to try to go after another rep by making my right hand the underhand and my left hand the overhand. That did not work. I struggled through and fought through the rest of my clock in that event, but I was only able to come out of there with 1 rep on that axle clean. And I knew something was very wrong at that point, but I walked off the stage and I remember, saying to Andy, because Andy was there with me at the contest, I said, something's wrong with my bicep. We're not taking my elbow sleeve off. What I want to do is I want to put another elbow sleeve on top of my elbow sleeve. The next event is circus dumbbell. We're moving on to the circus dumbbell. And then after that, we'll take the sleeves off and we will figure out what is wrong. So I warmed up for the circus dumbbell, and I can't remember what weight it was in 2012 there, but probably somewhere around 250 pounds. It may have been 255 or 242. They jumped the weight of the circus dumbbell those years, but it was obviously not light. So that is the point in time where I had to meet that next set of adversity head on. So the bicep, at that point, I didn't fully know that my bicep was detached, but it was detached. And instead of walking off and panicking and saying my contest is over, I didn't even address it because I came there to get a job done. I came there to win, and I came there to compete. And for me, the biggest thing in my childhood, in my life, is I was told that you do not quit. There's nothing that makes you quit. And I had a college basketball coach that told me, when we were going through practice, when we were going through games, you had 2 choices. You either got up and walked off on your own, or you got carried off. And as far as I was concerned at that point, I could still walk, I could still move, I could still make my arms move. So I was not done. I was not going to quit. I was not going to stop. And so I went into that circus dumbbell event, and I was only able to use my right arm to press. At that point, I really had trained to go back and forth, right to left. But I ended up in 2nd place on that circus dumbbell. Those were the 2 events that we had that day. And at that point, I was able to go see an orthopedic surgeon that night to kind of get checked out. He ran all the tests on me, checking out my left bicep, and, was able to kind of have me do a few things, move around, and essentially came to the conclusion that my left distal bicep tendon was ruptured. It was completely off and gone. And so he gives me this news, and my first question back to him was, so am I still able to compete? And I remember the look on his face when I said that to him, and it was a look of shock and almost disbelief in a lot of ways, because typically, I'm sure when he handed that news or gave that news to other individuals, they're thinking, okay, let's go to surgery. I'm done. I'm not going to work through this. And the response that he gave to me after the look of shock was, well, you've already torn it off. You can't tear it off again. I guess it's up to you whether you want to continue. And at that point, that was all I needed to hear to go back to my room and to get in the right mindset to attack the next day. Because like I said, I had trained unbelievably hard for this contest. I was in a competitive zone, and I was there to win. And meeting some adversity, leading up in the contest, I was not going to quit. Meeting adversity at the contest, I was not going to quit. So we moved on. I went to bed. I got up the next day. I went down to the contest and I started to warm up, and we went from there. So I said, I'm going to take it an event at a time, and I'm going to fight like my life depends on it, right? So I'm going in, warming up, and as you can imagine, that's quite a mental hurdle to try to work through when you know your bicep is detached. You're warming up for these weights, which are not light weights at the Arnold Classic. So I was able to fight through the log press event, which was the next event. And then we went on to the Hummer tire deadlift. And that one I was a little bit more concerned about because, you're strapped into the bar, which, kind of takes away the grip. But, I'm still pulling on this bar and there's quite a bit of movement. And I was able to do a big weight. I remember, that moment. I've seen the video and it's got, reshared on the internet, but I pulled 1,073 pounds. My nose was bleeding. My bicep was gone. And I remember after I did that pull, I just kind of put my arms up after I finished that deadlift. And I remember just standing on that stage and saying to myself, bring it on, right? I've already gone through enough. I fought through enough. And, I gave myself a chance to win the contest at that point. So I was actually tied for second place with one event to go in the Arnold Classic. And that last event was the frame carry. And they do a frame carry up a ramp at the Arnold Classic. It's very heavy. I believe that year it was 880 pounds that we had to carry up this ramp with no straps. So this is all grip. And I knew what type of spot this was going to put me in. Obviously, with having my bicep detached, doing a frame carry is probably one of the last events that you really want to do when your bicep is gone. But again, I'm in second place, and I told myself going into that last event, all I have to do is I need to carry this frame up this ramp, finish this event, and I win. If I win this event, I win the contest. And that's all I needed. That's all I needed to put in my head. And I was ready to meet that adversity and walk up to that frame so dialed in that it didn't matter what type of pain I was about to go through. I was going to finish that frame and I was going to give it everything that I possibly had. I picked the frame up. I started up the ramp, and I knew immediately that, this was something that I was going to have to fight hard for. And I fought as hard as I possibly could. About 3/4 of the way up the ramp, my left arm, the pulling was unbelievable. I can't really describe how much pain that this really put me into. Dropped the frame with my left side, gave up at that point. I re-gripped it, I picked it up, and I finished the frame, which, with the drop on that event, it was not good enough to win the event. And I knew that. So I finished the frame at that point, and I remember my body kind of going into almost a stage of shock because I couldn't walk. I really couldn't walk. So I kind of put my hands down on the frame, and I wasn't sure if I was going to pass out or what was really going to happen. But I had finished that frame. I had finished the contest. With my result, I actually ended up in fourth place. And I was able to kind of gather myself after that and walk back down the ramp, get off the stage. And, I just remember how much pain I was in. And, I was in that pain, but I also was proud of myself for not giving up and not giving in to the adversity that I had to face at that Arnold Classic. And that fourth place, certainly hurt because I came in there wanting to do more, but I had to deal with something. I had to deal with the bicep coming off. I had to fight through that for that entire contest. And the takeaway from this, the reason that I'm sharing this story with a lot of you is all too often we meet adversity in our lives, and in one way or another, it could come in a certain form or another form. And too often the first response by many people is to give up, right? I quit. I'm done. I can't fight through this. This is insurmountable. I'm not going to be able to do it. And mentally, you can always find another gear. You can always find another spot to go to, that next level, right? I wasn't going to die. I was going to have to deal with pain. I was going to have to overcome that pain to fight through. And for me, winning was enough of a reason to fight through. I had done so many hours and days of preparation leading up to this that I just was not willing to throw in the towel. I was not willing to quit. And I don't have quit in my vocabulary. I really never have. And, some people might listen to this and some people might say, wow, Brian, that was really stupid of you to do that. But for me, it was the right choice. I'm not telling anybody out there that if you tear your bicep, you should continue through an incredibly heavy strongman contest. But it was something that I chose to do. Nobody else told me to do it. I made the choice and I fought through it. And it's something that I'm very proud of. And it relates to so many other things in my life. There's so many of these moments, that I could share with you guys where I have had to fight through adversity, where I have had to overcome obstacles. And I've often said to get, to a spot in the sport of strongman at the top level where you have a long career and you're successful, you're going to have to fight through these types of moments. Maybe not this exact moment, because I know there's a lot of strongmen out there that have torn their bicep and immediately stopped, but that was just not me. And, from that point where that contest ended and I was all of that pain, I then had another obstacle to overcome, which was getting my bicep repaired. I actually had an appearance set up a couple days after the Arnold that I needed to go to. So bicep was torn. I went to that. I was doing research about who was the best bicep surgeon in the United States that I could possibly get to get my bicep repaired. And it came down to the two best that I could find at that point was a guy in Boston and then Dr. Peter Millett here in Colorado at the Stedman Clinic. And I was able to call both of them, talk to them. Dr. Millett was incredible. And he's who I ended up going to have the surgery done. He took care of me, understood what I needed to have done for my bicep, what I wanted to come back to. And, as I'm sharing this story with all of you, we're basically 10 years from that point in time, almost exactly 10 years from when that happened. And I have not had a problem with my bicep. I did all of the recovery. But, I had that surgery done. And I think the thing with that is I got right back into the gym, right? So I went and had the surgery. Basically the next day I was back in the gym. I was doing squats. I was doing leg presses. I was doing stuff that I could to keep moving forward and keep fighting back. I got done with the contest and met that adversity. I got done with the surgery, met that adversity, and I was able to build myself back up. So the point of this, and the reason that I'm really sharing this with you is, not for a pat on the back, not for, wow, Brian, that's incredible. What I want you to do is I want you to take this and I want you to look in the mirror for yourself and say, what am I going through and what challenges have I had in my life? You're going to face more challenges. We all are as life goes on. And we always have choices about how we face those challenges and how we deal with adversity. And, the takeaway that I would like all of you to think about for yourself is in the next challenge that you face or in any challenge that you face, could you have done it different? Is it something that you're proud of? Your reaction, were you proud of how you reacted and worked through that situation? And mentally, could you have potentially been stronger in that situation? Because we can always find a different level of mental strength. And, facing adversity and going through adversity does make you stronger. And so I'm, in hindsight, thankful for that experience, thankful for what I learned. And like I said at the beginning, I should have trained smarter, right? I think that the overtraining that I did week in and week out for that event is what ultimately led to me tearing my bicep. Do I think it was a great event? No. Do I think it's one of the silliest events that we've ever had in the sport of strongman? Yes, I do think that, but it was presented to me. It was presented to all of the other competitors, and that's what we had to do in that contest. And, coming out of it, I look at the lessons that I learned, what I went through, and the strength that I gained from going through that situation. So no matter what situation you personally are going through, hopefully you can take something away from this, and it will help you to be stronger in that situation and have some carryover to your life personally. We can always strive to be better. We can always strive to be stronger. We can always strive to overcome adversity in our lives and keep pushing forward and pushing to be great. I think that's it for today, guys. If you got something out of this, please share it. I really appreciate all the support that you guys are showing to the podcast. We're going to keep great episodes coming your way, and hope you all are doing amazing. Go out and be great, and we will check you guys later.